Dang, why'd it stop, man? What's up, guys? I'm BJ from Native Rods. I got a couple guys with me. I got the Big Man Bassin and Mike from Hooked Up Bait Co. Why don't y'all, Mike, go ahead and introduce yourself, and then Richard, tell them what's up.
Hey guys, as you know, it's Captain Mike here from Hooked Up Fishing Charters and Hooked Up Bait Company over here in little old Matlacha, Florida. Not much left out here anymore, but we're still out here building back. And I love catching redfish.
Yeah. What about you, Rich?
Well, as you guys can know and seen if you've been on the other podcasts and all that, I'm the Big Man Bassin. Freshwater is more my specialty, but I do love chasing the reds because it's one thing that I can bring a bait caster for. You know, it's a blast.
Definitely.
I love them.
Definitely, man. So, guys, today I was thinking about talking about redfish, man. I know Mike already spilled the beans a little bit and said he'd like to catch some redfish, but I do too, and I know that Richard does. So, the last couple podcasts that we've put out, we've talked about rods, reels, lines, everything down the line of what we need to catch redfish. And I know Mike, that's Mike's bread and butter, bro. Mike loves redfish, and that's his happy place. So I'm gonna direct a lot of these questions towards Mike, and Richard, you're gonna come in with the other side of it, because Mike is a charter captain, and Mike's experiences of redfish are from the charter captain side and from the more advanced, like he loves redfishing side. And you have beat up a lot of banks, oyster bars, mangroves, stuff like that. And I think we got a well-rounded table to talk about it. So I guess the first thing to do, like we always do, is combos, man. What combo would you use, Mike?
There's different setups for different kind of. When you're out red fishing, it depends on what kind of year. If you're chasing real big schools with big bulls, if you're just punching the mangroves, and you're on a boat and you're punching the mangroves and just either pitching artificials or pitching live bait, I think you're going to switch up your setups a little bit. But your most common setup is going to be anywhere from a 2,500 to a 4,000. Depends on if you're going for those bigger bulls and you want to use cut bait for the bigger fish. If you're chasing down and you're running big schools of bull reds, and all these fish are 30 inches plus, you want to go a little bit heavier. So again, like we've talked on other podcasts, that you don't want to go undersized with tackle, because you don't want to injure the fish and wear them out and make them, dolphin prey and shark prey and stuff like that. So if I was chasing fish, redfish, they're 30 inches and above. The bigger schooled fish, I would be running a 3,500 to a 4,000 with 30 pound braid. And 30 pound leader monofilament.
Definitely. What about you, Rich? What do you like to throw? I know you said you like to use a bait caster.
For me, I'll use one of the smaller Tranxes, or all the way up to a Tranx 400. If I'm throwing around some bigger swim baits, going for some bigger reds. Going on to the bigger side of things, the only thing that we may use a little bit different, more land-based wise, is we bring 5Ks out every once in a while for some of the bigger cut bait, because one of the things we lose bank fishing is being able to chase a fish or being able to be a little bit more mobile. We're kind of on that one spot of the bank, especially pier fishing or just, hugging seawalls. We want to be able to turn that before it takes a corner or runs up in something. So slow it down a little bit quicker. Most of my 4Ks nowadays are, decent drag. They're almost the same drag as a lot of the 5Ks. But, you get a little bit more line out of a 5K just in case you do get that big red that runs, or, a little bit of mishap on trying to turn when you have that a little bit more strength to pull on them.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know for me.
Sorry, ahead, I was just going to cut in there. Definitely a good point. Again, with where you're fishing, how you're fishing, what kind of reds, what size reds you're going for, what kind of bait you're fishing for. Because there's times like, here locally, if you're fishing like, I would say where, you've got your personal best redfish and blind pass, With that water moving real heavy like that, you got structure, you got docks, you got rocks, you got other fishermen. And if you want a little bit more control and not to lose that bigger fish, you obviously want to go a little bit heavier. So I would even agree with, Bassin on that the 5,000, with the stiffer rod, a little bit bigger, a little bit stiffer gear, to be able to control the fish a little bit better in those scenarios are definitely good point.
Yeah, I know me typically, man. I got 2 rod setups almost for any fish, honestly, and that is like a 2,500, 3,000, like 7'6" rod, medium rod, 10-pound braid, 10 to 20 max, with 20, 30-pound leader for my smaller stuff for my flats, and then when I'm chasing the big girls, as Mike knows, I stand behind Cabo like 100% because some of the biggest fish I've ever caught is on a Cabo. And they're indestructible. They're heavy as hell, but they're indestructible. But the rod that I'm pairing it with is already heavy as hell. So it's not like I'm going to throw jigs with it all day, but I'll run my 6,000 Cabo with like 50-pound braid and, 80 to 100-pound leader for the real big ones. So we got line. Did we get leader? Did we hit leader?
Yeah.
What kind of leader y'all like to use?
Leader, but I mean, I would, when you're fishing heavy like that, I would say, it's almost when you're doing that set it and forget it, waiting for that real big fish. They always say 8 big fish. When you're throwing that, whole croaker or, that big whole chunk of blue crab or whatever it is that you're using and that, is going to bring in that bigger fish. To eat that bigger bait, and you're setting and forgetting it, I would probably use anywhere from 40 to 50 monofilament.
Yeah. I even go a little heavier. Like I said, I go like 80 to 100 just because I'm going for the big girl. I don't want no chances. And most of the time with the big ones, they're not leader shy like the small ones. You know what I mean? For redfish, snook, any of it. You know what I mean?
Especially certain times of year too, man. There's all kinds of factors in this sport, and with every different fish, there's so many factors that come into play that you're going to switch up the setup. So you can't just take one setup and run with it, and it be something that you can catch every size of that same kind of fish, or your scenarios, your situations that you're in with current structure, what size fish you're fishing for. I mean, like you said, when you got that big of a fish, certain times a year, even at that, they're less, they're going to be more, less leader shy in the winter when there's less food around. And when they find something, they don't care. They're going to eat it.
Yeah. They're going to eat it. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the ideal of kind of the podcast and what we're doing is kind of like trying to drop some gates for some people, man. And, I know that in previous podcasts, we've dropped some gates like that have been like held up by a lot of people. And I understand why they're being held up. But at the same time, as we've talked in other podcasts with both of you guys, I want to bring a lot of this stuff to light. I know we were talking about the snook one with the last one with Mike, how I really want to drop some fences on the snook, on the big snook. But I want to do the same thing on the reds, man. So I really want to get into it. Location, water depth, tide, everything like that. Mike is really good on catching reds on the flats. So Mike, go ahead and tell us a little bit about catching reds on the flats.
So, our unique water, our fishery is, as we've talked on other podcasts, even with the trout podcast, if you guys go back and look at that and listen to the trout podcast, same thing. When you're out on a grass flat, our sanctuary is very unique as to where we have a lot of grass flats and we have tons of small islands surrounded with bigger islands, and it's kind of similar to like the 10,000 islands just south of us in the Everglades, where we have, so many islands and so much structure that are right in the middle of a flat that is surrounded by 3 to 5 feet of grass flats. So you got your trout that are all surrounding that, and then you've got your structure where you're going to find your redfish more often. Sometimes in the wintertime now, their situations are a little bit different. The fish get a little bit more lethargic. They wander off a little bit. They're not really together in the wintertime. So you will find them out in open water more so than any time of the year. So, depending on what time of year it is going to dictate where and how you find those fish. But on the flats, you're going to really find your redfish around structure, up around any kind of island, mangroves that have hangovers, especially in the summertime when it's hot. You're going to look for those shaded areas where there's a lot of overhang and there's water that runs underneath it where that bait's getting flushed through by the current. And, they kind of stage on points of the island. If you've got a point out on an island that sticks out and a little deep cut right there that's kind of washed out because of the current coming through there, those fish seem to stage behind a little cut like that, waiting for their prey to come through and get flushed through with the tide there, and it's just a perfect highway for them to just sit and eat.
So I kind of wanted to hit on some points like that, man. So a lot of people that know the area, they're going to be leaving from Matlacha, right? If they left from like D&D boat ramp over here, and they came out around this corner, Mike, and they came to like the Bokeelia Point, right? That oyster bar by the Jug Creek Shoals. How would you fish that spot?
So that spot there is actually a really unique location. That redfish, that exact spot that you're talking, or in that general area, there is in the summertime, there is a group of fish that always return around that area. There's, and sometimes it's not always the same fish, but there is actually a pretty good school of fish that are the same breed, that have these unique markings, and that's how you're able to tell that that those fish are breeding with each other and kind of coming back to the same area. They are attracted to that area there. I don't know, you dropped out of it there, but on a certain tide, tides and wind conditions are going to be different how I would stage that area. But the way that I fish that particular area is I'm going to get to where I know the fish are commonly around that certain area. Depending if you have a tower, or if you have a trolling motor with a pulling platform, or if you're pulling around any situation, you want to get where you can be quiet and you can be up high as possible and cruise around those areas that that you've seen those fish before, and kind of find them in schools in the summertime, because in that general area right there, you're going to find that those fish school up in this time of year, especially September, October. They start really schooling together. I'm going to look for fish first, because they do get in big numbers of anywhere from 50 to 300 fish that I've seen out in that area. So when you've got reds and they're all, upper 20s, even over 30-inch reds, you're going to see what we call as the blood cloud. It's a light water. That water almost turns red from them. There's so many of them, and they're, bright orange and reddish color, and that many fish that are together. I'm going to look for schools first, cruise around and just, pluck away until you catch one. And then once you catch one or two, kind of sit down, chum a little bit, start chumming up, and that chum tends to bring the fish to you once they start on that there's food in the area. And usually you can draw those fish pretty close to you and just sit there and fish them with chumming.
Yeah. Are you gonna be fishing live bait or artificial right there?
That area this time of year, live bait, definitely live bait. And then once you get them, if you've got a live well full of bait, and you're able to get them drawn to the boat, you're going to want to take a scoop of bait and sling them out there a good, 15 to 20 baits at a time. If you're on a school, you want to really keep them chummed up, and then you can throw something similar to that, like a live target sardine, You can throw pretty much anything at that point. When they're this time of year, they're feeding on everything that moves. But when you're chumming them up, you can throw, a lot of anything artificial pretty much that's going to move. So you don't have to keep resetting with live bait and get in with live bait and mix it up,
Yeah. Richard, bro, me and you have talked about this area right here on Burnt Store quite a bit too for land-based
you
fishing.
scroll a little bit further down.
Down.
Yeah, down a little bit, down a little bit, down a little bit.
It's up, ain't it?
No, wow, mine is down. Mine's just edge of Cape. Keep going, keep going. You'll see the park, I promise.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
you fished the park. You fished the actual marina or what?
No. Keep going
or the
down.
State park.
Right here.
There it is.
That old walking trail right there. The old pumpkin patch.
Okay, guys. So this spot is pretty well known. We're not like dropping bombs right now, but we are dropping some good knowledge. This road right here is Burnt Store. Burnt Store, right?
Old Burnt Store is more to the right. This is Calusa over to, I forget what street this is, but that's the Charlotte Harbor State Preserve. There's multiple different entrances into there. The main entrance is right there, and you follow that trail out to the north.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll be able to walk south or north, and it's a great option. You can also walk out to the bar. It's only about waist deep. Sometimes at low tide, it's not even waist deep, and you can walk all the way out to that bar. And what we'll do is we'll walk north and south. You can see all the creeks feeding out. There's oyster beds along that entire mangrove line there.
And one creek just north of there, if you look, there's a creek that you can see if you zoom in a little bit there, BJ. Just north of that. Yep, there's a creek there that comes out and feeds.
Oh, yeah. And we just walk those banks. And when we're throwing that, we go simple. We'll throw a small white DOA, or some people are throwing the NLBNs. Typically, if I'm fishing it, I got white 3-inch DOA cows. I've got chartreuse tails, and then I've got a pink. I always bring my pink because if they don't hit the white or the chartreuse tail for some reason, they'll nail the pink.
Yeah, if any of you guys are trying to go out there, you can bring live bait, but it's a hike. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm on the old walking Crocs. I throw 3 bags of bait in my backpack, plenty of jig heads, and 1 rod, and just go on the mission.
Yeah, and a lot of times too, that place is flooded with knee-deep water. So it's definitely.
There's, like I said, there's more than one entrance there. There's another one we call Vietnam, and it's a little bit to the south. But I don't recommend that for the faint of heart, because trust me, you will not be able to see your hand underneath the surface of the water.
Yeah.
You can walk in through all those entry points down there and pop out and walk the banks, and it's fun. There's a lot of good redfish, a lot of good snook. We've gone there in the summertime, right during tarpon season, and walked around. We've also jumped some miniature tarpon back in there. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Fishery year round, but it's a great place for reds.
So if you guys are hunting for small reds, this area right here, this is it's where you need to go. Tell them a little bit about this area, Mike. It's
where you're at,
north of Matlacha,
you're at Big Dead Key.
Yeah, he's sort of Buzzard Bay.
Up by around Two Pines area.
Yeah.
This location, this back here, I mean, it's phenomenal. It's like what we call the mini 10,000 islands. As you can see, as he's in there, there's just creeks and endless amount of water that just runs back into mangroves, and it's so secluded back here. I mean, we've been back, we take boat. I've taken boats up as far as I can with the kayaks on the boats, and then get off in kayaks and take off back in these creeks. And I mean, you can get lost. I mean, look at all of these areas when you've got, got creeks that just go for miles back there, and bends and turns, and a lot of those areas, if you go a little bit north there, BJ, just to kind of show them, zoom in a little bit right there. You can see where those light patches are. Go down a little bit, where the light and dark patches are in those creek areas, going back up in there. Okay, so you see the sand right there where the mouse is. You've got sand that's basically, even on a high tide, it's just barely under the surface of the water. So when you get low tide, that's, sticking up out of the water. Then you've got, when you go back up in these creeks, every turn and every bend that you see, the darker areas are deeper water. So when you get back up in there with an incoming tide on a good day where you don't, you want to attempt these areas where the tides don't get too low where you get trapped in there. You want those mid-level tide days that they don't get down to negatives. You're just in the wintertime. It's a good place to fish, but you really got to watch those negative tides and know and be familiar with the tides and what they're going to do that day when you attempt these areas. But those holes and those bends there tend to hold a lot of fish on the incoming tides. That bait's getting flowed through there, and they just kind of sit in those potholes and wait for their food to come to them. And they just good ambushal areas back there around corners. If you look right around the mangrove, around a bend there where it gets a little dark, that water rushes by there, and those fish just tend to sit there and just wait for their food to come to them. And you just fish those areas, strategically. Obviously, if you've got an incoming tide, you want to stay outside of it a little bit. You don't want to go across where you're fishing. You want to stay far as possibly. The furthest you can cast is about the distance you want to be away from those areas, and kind of stay off a little bit in the distance, get a little bit closer to the mangroves and cast into those areas, and work them in slowly and work each bend and each pothole and every spot through there, because you just never know. You never know where they're sitting. I find one spot where there may be 2 or 3 fish. There may be just one fish on one, and we found, some of them that are holding 10, 12 fish. There's been spots back there that we've sat for 2 or 3 hours and caught juvenile snook, juvenile reds, and then even jumped, a couple small tarpon, micro tarpon. You catch your grove snapper and sheephead. There's just such a mixture of stuff back there that it's amazing.
Yeah, man, I do want to hit on too, like Mike said, that you really need to pay attention to the tides out here, because it is no joke. The tides, when they flush out here on like a heavy tide day, this water, I don't know if you guys can see the mouse, but this area right here where the sandbar that Mike was talking about is, that water, you'll be in here back around the corner somewhere fishing this pothole and staging up on redfish like around the corner, like he said, at the tides going out. And by the time you get back out here to where this sandbar is, you can't get across, and you have to wait in that hole for the tide to come back in. So it's definitely no joke. Definitely something to pay attention to. But you'll find a lot of rat reds in there, and you'll find your big reds too. But there's definitely quantity of healthy reds in there. Another area, man. Other than that, Mike, when they're on like the beaches and stuff like that, like let's say over here by like Key Acosta, every once in a while you'll find them on like the beaches of this corner. What draws them to the beaches and like those areas like that?
So not even just being an angler, but just being a beach goer. If you've been a beach goer and you go to the beach, I know I've got several friends and other captains and stuff that I work with that just on their personal time, they just love beach fishing for snook in the summertime, man. It's phenomenal. They got, those snook crews the beaches, because if you ever notice, if you're a beach goer and you go to the beach to swim, there's, pretty much half of the year, there's bait always on the beach.
Yeah.
And it's pretty spread out. It's sometimes they get schooled up, but for the most part, they have wide open water there. Matter of fact, just 2 days ago, I was on the water and we went out to the beach, and there was just pelicans diving for as far as you could see, all the way down. Diving around people that were swimming and everything, because there was just so much bait on the beach. So those snook like to go to the inside of those passes and even on the beaches, and they just cruise the beach lines. They're cruising in that 2 to 3 foot range and kind of keep their eye out there up against the wash there, where bait gets a little bit vulnerable, because the bait's cruising up on the shallow, feeling more safe in the shallow water, and sometimes that wave will come up and crash, and it throws that bait off a little bit, and it makes them vulnerable, and it just strikes that instinctive that dinner bell in a snook that just sees that vulnerability, and they just strike, and it's a neat scene to actually see. So they're attracted to the bait. There's a lot of food there.
Oh, yeah. You got any other spots? Go ahead, Rich.
I would say to add on to that, like when we night fish for it a lot, back when the pier was still intact on Sanibel, you guys rehearsed that, the drink at the same time.
That was good, wasn't it?
But
that was good.
We'd go out to, the old Sanibel Lighthouse Pier, and there was so much bait and snook and red stacked there, especially during the winter time. It was just that perfect point, like we were just talking about down south there. And, the pier,
that's on a huge scale right there. That's a huge scale of like what I was talking about with the mangroves with, when you've got an island, you got a little point on an island. This is a huge scale. Exactly to what you're saying, Bassin, is that right there is a point where that water just rushes through underneath that, and that pier being a structure, it's somewhere where the bait gets washed through by there, and they get next to that dock, and they try. If you ever notice, every time you're on a fishing pier, it doesn't matter if you're in Boquilla, if you're in Boca Grande, if you're in any kind of pass, if you're out on the piers out there by South Seas or any of the piers that are close to beaches like that, the bait tend to get in that structure and they feel safe. It's a place for them to hide, so they hide under that structure, and they want to get up along that pole and basically try to think that their predators aren't going to see them. So just like I explained another, I love saying it is that like when you or I get hungry, we know where to go. We're going to the fridge or the snack drawer.
Yes, sir.
So fish get hungry, they know that they can go to that bridge or anywhere where there's structure to find, their next meal.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think last year alone, I saw 2 reds over 50 inches get pulled out of there too.
Oh yeah, man. I've seen some wild stuff there, man. I've been fishing there, and I've seen dolphin thrown around 40, 44-inch snook, just like they're toys, man.
Oh yeah.
Are just they're amazing creatures, but they're our worst enemy when we're fishing and trying to fish a dock or fish anything. I got clients. I've had docks where, especially in sheephead season as well, there's the sheephead under a dock, and every time you're catching one, you get one the nearest 2 feet away from the dock, and they're coming in and striking and grabbing them. But it's just amazing seeing them. I've seen them out there at Lighthouse Pier just throwing 40+ inch snook just like they're just play toys.
Oh yeah.
If you were to fish that, Richard, like the Boquilla Pier, that area, what would be your setup and your bait and all that?
So like Boquilla Pier, especially now with as much stuff still in the water, and they've rebuilt a lot out there, and that white dock's not even there anymore.
The one on the right.
When I would go out there, I'd bring a little 3000 out with me to throw around some lures, but there's some big snook and there are some big reds that like to hang out there. So the 4000 and the 5000 come out. Typically, we've been having a lot of luck tossing off the front side, just going straight out, maybe 20 yards. And there's some big reds cruising over there. Biggest red I've seen get caught on Boquilla that I've been either shown or actually saw myself since it's reopened was, I believe, a 42.
That's
good solid fish.
Yeah, no, it's a big red for sure.
Yeah, that's a very impressive fish for here, though.
Oh yeah, I mean, you normally don't see them too huge. I mean, out in the passes, you'll see some of those bigger reds, but it's very rare to see them, especially near the flats like that. I've only seen a handful of big reds get caught. My PB's nothing huge. It was 33, but I don't get to go out for them all the time.
Definitely.
Nice red though, man. A lot of people are still working in those lower 20s,
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, man. Right here, this is where I caught my biggest red. It's at Blinds Pass, a spot that a lot of people know. But me and Mike were just messing around one day, and I dropped a mullet tail over, I think. just messing around, and I was fishing on the north side, or I guess that would be like northeast side, whatever. And something came up and thumped it, dude. And I was telling Mike, I was like, dude, what is that? You know, and he's like, at first we thought it was a black drum, and I'm like, oh man, but it was a monster drum. Even if it was a black drum, it was a huge one, you know. And I kept going back and forth, and we finally landed that thing, dude. And you could see the pictures on my face. I was just like, what? I was like shocked. But a lot of my biggest fish have came right there from that area. But that's like the same thing as the Bokeelia Pier or the Sanibel Pier. It's something that you do have to fish. Like if you're going for them bigger redfish, man, you have to fish bigger equipment. You know what I mean? Like you're not going out there with a 2,500 and landing a 40-inch redfish. You know?
No,
just
not without a lot of luck.
Yeah,
a whole lot,
especially because
a whole lot of luck and
a little bit of swimming.
Yeah, a whole lot of luck and a whole lot of line.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's crazy, man. What tides do y'all like fishing for reds?
For me, it kind of depends. If I'm out fishing the bar, I like an outgoing tide because it's kind of pulling everything out into the water that they're able to access a little bit easier. But if I'm blind pass, I'm almost enjoying an incoming tide because I want it to drift up underneath and I want it to, come towards me and be able to fish it in a little bit better manner.
Yeah. I like the jetty at Lines Pass on an outgoing tide. I think that's my outgoing tide there, and then like you said, incoming tide on the other side. But I know like a lot of people, they come in and I hate to drop bombs and piss people off again, but we got to do it. That's what we're here for, right? But people will come and they'll throw lights down, right? And you'll be fishing that spot all night, like, and then somebody will throw a light down, and it does catch fish. Lights do catch fish, but they definitely they throw off big fish. They push big fish further out, and it's hard to catch big reds and big snook on green lights. That's one of the things I always think about when I see people doing that. I'm like, oh no, you just killed the bite for a little while, at least an hour or so. But what's another spot, Mike? What you got? A spot that's not giving up too much secrets.
Tides. You had the question with the tides. I really didn't.
Tides. Yeah.
Yep, sorry. But so with tides, I mean, it really depends on how you're fishing for the reds and where you're fishing. What kind of day are you looking at? I mean, are we going on kayaks? Are we going to be ground pounding? Are we going to be on a boat? Are we going to be just bridge fishing? Are we going to be hitting the pier? All of those things that, they're all different factors. When you're fishing on a boat, obviously, on a boat, I would say your best time is at the very end of the incoming, fishing the beginning of an outgoing. You're going to want to always fish, which, what I like to call is like the magic hours at the end of any kind of tide, whether it be the incoming or the outgoing, and the beginning of that either outgoing or incoming, because those are the golden hours where those tides are changing and the fish know that change and they are going to take opportunity in that change. So as the tide's coming up to the highest, the fish know that, hey, the water's slowing down. It's about to start going the other way. We're going to lose this area. We're going to have to go out deeper. So they take that opportunity to really start feeding on that last hour of that tide on an incoming, where you can really get up underneath those bushes where they're trying to get their cool time, trying to cool down for midday, midday tide where, it's really hot. They're trying to stay in that shade as long as they can. And if they start losing water, they're going to have to push out, into open water. So they're going to take that opportunity, I believe, in the last hour of an incoming to the first hour of the outgoing, before it gets too shallow. So on boat, I would say high tide around mangroves. On your low tides, you want to go out in open water and find deep holes. channels, the closest channels to any islands, especially islands that you have caught even early that morning. If there was an early morning where you had a high tide, you had a high tide that morning, and certain you were these 3 islands in a certain area, and you really got on quite a few fish in that area. I would really focus on any potholes or deep spots out in open water around that area, because those same fish are going to move into that deeper area, deeper potholes and stuff and open water in that area where it's a little bit cooler, and they can kind of have that opportunity to get the fish that are washing through on the rest of that moving tide. So, with tides like that, fishing a boat, that would be what I would say on the lowest tide. If you have all day where it's a pretty low tide, I would be fishing, passes, docks around any kind of pass, because you got deep water, and it's always going to be, fairly deep in those areas. And they know that no matter what, as long as the water's moving and it's a little, even though it's too low to get up in shallower waters up in the mangroves and grass flats and stuff like that, they're going to stay around those areas and channels and, passes around docks and stuff like that where there's deeper water.
Yeah, definitely.
I see the spots.
I know me and that's a good one, man. And it's one that a lot of people know about, but it's a good one. Ding Darlin. This whole the top side where that says like Ding Darlin National Wildlife Park, that is all a no motor zone. So there's a lot of big fish in there, man. You can get in your kayak and dive out there, or you can fish from the road.
You can also
a bunch of little spillways. You could what?
You can also get lost.
Yes.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
You can do that very much so out there. You made the joke of the 10,000 islands feel there. I mean, there's so many left and right turns you can take, and all of a sudden you're just nowhere where you're supposed to be.
I just couldn't imagine being growing up, I've not done much fishing in Everglades, which I do want to change that. Especially after recently listening to some other podcasts with some locals of the Everglades and how the fisheries were. The stories are just amazing. And even recently meeting some people that, are from the Everglades, and, just having the conversation has really struck a match for me with wanting to really try to get down there and try. I know it's not as good as it used to be, but it's still less touched land than here. But it's kind of, I always think like, man, they say the 10,000 islands down there, but I feel like we have 10,000 areas in our fisheries that have 10,000 islands.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we may be down to 994 after this last hurricane, but
Yeah. And it might be a little bit stickier and less green, but they are coming back. But it's just amazing. Like the east, you got the east wall up there in Burnt Store, all up that area, all the way up Burnt Store up into Southport Charlotte, from Southport Charlotte all the way down to Matlacha. That whole stretch, there's probably a good half to 3/4 of that area that is just loaded with just hundreds of islands. There's just tons of islands, and then you've got Pine Island areas, the Mondongo Rocks, that there's just so many islands in that area that are open and kind of more in open water. And then if you go out and even into the Pine Island, you've got Ding Darlin area, all up and down around Sanibel on the inside, anywhere Ding Darlin and south and north of there. I mean, there's just so many areas that are so unique, and you can get lost in so many different areas that I feel like it's definitely a lot of competition to the 10,000 islands in Everglades, and that's why we have such unique fishery here.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Do you think that the hurricane has affected much of the redfish, like of their structure, their way of life?
I don't think it's affected the fishery as far as I haven't seen any research, and I haven't seen FWC release anything as far as any fish kills from toxins or anything like that. Oil spills, gas spills, all the vehicles, that were, plunged in water, the tides where, you got to think all of that ocean water came up and up onto land, and just all of the chemicals and toxins and oil and gas. We haven't really seen any research on any major fish kills from that. So I don't know that it really affected the fisheries of that, but I definitely I would agree and say that the demographic bottom and areas have changed a lot to change certain areas where fish are and where they usually or typically would have been staged, and areas that we know that fish were before that they're no longer. Here in Matlacha, we've got areas, just right outside of, the inside of the Indian fields on the south end of the Indian fields by the flat bridges. There's areas there that used to be 2 to 3 feet of water on even a low tide. And now on a low tide, you're lucky if you have, on a high tide, actually, you're lucky if you have 10 inches of water anymore. So that shows you that the force of the water, the way that it came in and went back out, it's changed the bottom and washed and caused so many washouts that things are different. I mean, I can't wait to see Google, when Google does updates on these Google Earth and all of this change, and I would be interested in seeing the side by side pictures of that once they do these satellite imaging again.
Well, one thing they did do was after the hurricane, and it was something I was playing with to check out some of the passes. FEMA did a satellite update of our entire area to try to help with first responders and all that. Yeah. And if you can find that FEMA map, it'll show you the next day basically of what changed. Yeah. And we were looking down around the south side of St. James City, and there were passes that were, maybe only, I mean, I really would call them canals more than passes, but now they're like actual passes. There's, deep pockets and all that. So, I mean, there was a lot that happened that they did. I do like FEMA, like post Ian map.
Whoa, I spelled that wrong.
Stratolite.
We already have such an issue with, certain areas, which there's not too many areas, but Blind Pass being one of those. Blind Pass being an area where they constantly have issues. I believe it's about every 2 years they have to redredge that, and it seems to be as time goes on that it's shorter and less time. I don't know if they're not dredging it as much and as deep every time or what's going on, but it seems to be like, it almost feels like 8 months to a year after they dredge it, it's already getting washed back in and out again. You were on it there earlier on the maps, and I was going to show you, it was almost looked like it was closed up, and we don't even know was when that was updated. When you were looking at the Google Maps there, that could have been from before the hurricane. Obviously, I'm sure it was from before the hurricane. It may not have been, but before the hurricane, I remember that area where you could walk on the north, I guess it'd be the northwest end of it where the jetty usually is. You can get out and walk nearly on a sandbar almost 3/4 of the way across that pass on the ocean.
I sent it to you.
See right there on the ocean side, you see that finger? That finger coming out on the south, or it would be the west end.
South side.
Yeah. Yeah, look at that. That's not typically usually there. I mean, if you remember, if you scroll up where the rocks are there along the jetty, there used to be water. There should be water all along those rocks that go all the way up to the bridge. We used to fish that. It used to be 6 feet deep right next to the rocks there. So that just shows
it's great.
clearly the washout there, and I don't know how long it's been since they dredged that, but that's that's a major issue.
Yeah, no, it definitely is, and it has been for a long time.
So, and it changes the fish. I mean, you hear about Blind Pass. Blind Pass still holds a lot of fish. It still holds a lot of fish. I know a lot of captains that that use that as a backup plan because it's well protected, and anytime that you've got north winds or south winds, east or even west winds. West winds are really not the best there, but they use the area for a backup plan for because the fishery's still pretty good. But I mean, how much better it could be with that dredging and the proper maintenance done to that area. It's pretty amazing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we don't talk about the east, like the east side of Blinds Pass too, which always takes a really good hit too, man. It always fills up really fast and needs to be dredged. What? Go ahead and tell us some more, Richard, about some spots that you like or why you like those spots.
So to talk a little bit more on Ding Darling, where we were looking at that, one cool thing that they actually just did out there recently, and we were actually out there fishing, I think like 2 weeks ago. They had just dumped a bunch of reds in there too, a bunch of juvenile rat reds. The state had gone through and dumped through there, and we were seeing some pretty big schools of them in there, but they were a little bait shy. We were throwing top waters early morning. We got there as soon as the park opened. We were first in line. So we were out there, we're throwing everything we could, paddle tails, live shrimp. We cast netted some finger mullet. But
it didn't work. I tried it, but it didn't work. I tried to pull up the
you were trying to pull up the old map?
Yeah.
Oh, is that it?
That NOAA map, but it didn't work. No, that was the other one. I might have put something in wrong, but I was trying to type it letter by letter because the computer wouldn't open up Facebook. But yeah, definitely. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Other than Ding Darling, there's a lot of good fishing around Sanibel in itself. There's a few places that they don't recommend you stop and fish. There's the old T-word signs. But when you go up Ding, if you go up north a little bit, there's a bunch of water that goes up underneath the road, and there's a little bit of a place you can pull over and wait to be told you can't park there. But there's reds that'll sit through there. Then probably the one place that isn't being talked about too much, but we've been seeing some down there recently, Cape Harbor. Now that the lock's gone, there's a lot of water moving there and a lot of just stuff pumping through and in and out. And I mean, we went down there the other day, and I mean, you'd see snook down there regardless, but there was snook and reds all stacked up on the incoming side, and they were sitting on it's just like a little miniature pass in that same aspect that they're just waiting right out of the current to hit something. All that water's coming rushing through that little bit of a gully that's left of what used to be the lock. And those fish are just sitting there busting bait. We're seeing reds, we're seeing snook, we're seeing tarpon, we're seeing bigger black drum too. But there's been a good amount of reds sitting down there recently, and they've been hitting anything that goes by their face.
Yeah, definitely. So, you got any more points on Redfish, Mike? Or you think we nailed it?
Oh man, there's just so much, man. I mean,
so let's give it to them. That's what we're here for. We got to give them it all. Got to give them the sauce.
Yeah, there is just so much information about redfish. I mean, as you know, when you mentioned it, these are one of my favorite. I went through my stage where I obsessed for snook, and I get when I get effectuated on something, I want to know the absolute most information and figure out why they do what they do and what they every aspect of why they act the way they do. I heard I missed the podcast with you guys with the peacocks, and I wanted to kind of touch on with peacocks how those fish are so neat, but we'll probably have to do another one on those. But so research of reds just because they're one of my favorite fish to fish for. Just to touch a little bit more on so that people that don't know about them, they are crustacean eaters. We haven't really talked on what they really eat.
Yeah, primary food source.
In the summertime, as the water temperatures get up and the bait is available, they start getting fired up. Really around springtime, they start getting fired up, and then through the summer they eat. But then when we start getting closer to the fall, the favorite pumpkin patch time,
when Redtober,
when them Red October, getting closer to Halloween, when the pumpkins come out, they really start to eat and fall. And the reason for that is, you can see all of the research you want. You can, get in with, people that talk about redfish, and they don't ever really explain the details about them and why they do what they do. When it comes into the fall, they know fish just like us. Like I say, my favorite saying is when we're hungry, we go to the cabinet snack drawer, we go to the fridge. These fish know just as well their lives, and how and what to do and when to do it. They barometric pressure. That barometric pressure is something that affects these fish a lot, and it affects all fish, not just redfish, but all fish. So they sense that, and they know what to do and when to do it. So in the fall, they start to really feed up as those temperatures start to drop, and they realize the temperature is about to drop. Well, the temperature is about to drop. Well, we know, and they put two and two together that, the temperatures are dropping, so the water temperature is going to drop. We're going to lose bait. There's not going to be very much food here soon. So we need to go in full force feed mode. Like we need to, almost like bears. I always kind of, when I explain to my customers and clients that ask why they do that, why is it that October is the biggest feeding month, and why is it that you do this? Well, that time of year, they know that, here coming soon, it's going to be winter, and they're going to be very limited to what food sources they have. In the wintertime, all of our bait pushes off. We don't have sardines. The pinfish are very, very few and far between. They move off. They go off to the reefs. They get in deeper water. There's always going to be pinfish on the flats throughout the year, but for the most part, our fishery, as far as bait fish, is really affected with the winter and the cold temperatures. They go for deeper water, so that leaves the redfish's favorite. They're crustacean eaters, so they eat snails, they eat crabs, they eat shrimp, and all of the stuff that most other fish don't eat. They have crushers in their throat that actually help them digest and crush those shells and those hard crustaceans. So in the wintertime, they get a little bit more lethargic and they get a little bit slow active. They're not eating as much. The water temperatures are down. The food sources are down. They're kind of out of gas. There's not as much to eat on, so they slow down a lot. But that's why in the fall they really feed up and they eat on all the bait fish they can. They get in big schools, which is weird. Some people don't know the logic between nobody really explains why they get in big schools of fish this time of year. Well, the reason why they do that is because they're protecting each other. They want to get in a school just like an army, like we do in America. What do? When we go to war, we send 500 people with guns and muscles, and we get in one big group and we go at it and we go to war together. When you team, it's a whole lot better to go to war and defend yourself. So they get in big schools this time of year to protect themselves while they go out on that binge to feed up and get full for the wintertime. You know, they really fatten up and try to eat as much as they can to survive through the wintertime where their food is going to be kind of limited. You know, one of their worst predators are dolphins. Dolphins and sharks. I mean, obviously, sharks are not nearly as bad as dolphins, but they are a problem. But the dolphins absolutely love redfish.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
they love anything that goes off the side of a boat.
Yeah.
So they get in big schools to protect themselves and kind of stand up against, you know, dolphins, and you know, they get out in big schools and they prowl. They get in schools and they start to get in more open water. Now they're getting out away from mangroves and away from underneath docks, and you know, they're getting out away from all of the structure that protects them. You know, they're starting to get in bigger fish and bigger schools, and they prowl and get in more open water. They search around. You're going to find them, you know, cruising across the grass flat from one island to another, and they swim around the islands and in big schools, and also from oyster bar to oyster bar and sandbar to sandbar. That's why, you know, this time of year, like we were talking about on that point of Bokeelia, where you have all of the what we call the rocks. It's a huge oyster bar that runs on the northeast side of Jug Creek. There's a huge oyster bar out there, and that's one that they really love. You know, they big schools, big numbers of fish out there. This time of year, you go out there and you're gonna find those upwards to 100 to 300 fish. 2 years ago, before the hurricane, we were finding. I found the same school of fish multiple times. I don't fish there that much, but when I was fishing there, I was finding the same school of fish and anywhere from 100 to 300 fish in that school, you know, and they were there every time I went. So, you know, that's how they do. They feed up for the wintertime, and then in the wintertime, when you want to fish them, you're going to find them a little bit more in open water as well, but they're going to be singled out. They're going to be on real low tides, trying to get warm. We kind of touched on that subject before with a lot of people think, oh, the shallower the water, the colder it is. Well, it's not necessarily true. The way a puddle works is on the shallower end of a puddle where the sun's beating on it, it's going to be a little bit warmer because there's less water, and the UVs and the sun tend to heat that water up a little bit more. So you're going to find enough tides when you want to fish for redfish in the winter on low tides. If you can get in the water, if you're, you know, in a kayak or canoe, or if you're wading, you want to get in those shallow waters and be really, really, really quiet, because in our wintertime, our water is crystal clear. We have just the water is just amazing, crystal clear. So that allows them to be able to see you. If you can see them, they can see you. You know, so seeing fish, they're seeing you more than likely. That's not the case all the time, but you know, depending on the situation and how high you are, if you're standing on a pulling platform and you see a fish, the back of a fish, it's not likely that he's seen you yet, but it's within a minute or so, you know, or just a few seconds that he's going to turn his head one time, or he's going to turn and he's going to see you. So you got to be very, very, very quiet and stealthy in the wintertime, but you can find them singled out, sometimes 2 and 3 fish together, but it's not likely. They kind of spread out and they get in those shallow waters and they kind of wander around, you know, digging around, looking for food. They're scavengers, bottom feeders. Those are on the bottom of their heads, and they spend their time in the wintertime really just kind of digging around, trying to uproot shrimp, uproot those mussels, uproot those snails, and anything that they can crush up and get some meat out of and survive through the winter. So on those real low tides, that's when you know, us real avid anglers that love redfish and tailing reds really tend to go out and look for them. When you've got a tide and they're out in those shallow waters, you got, you know, a 30-inch fish that's in, a 1.5 to 2 foot of water. And he's out there in the quiet, minding his own business, just sticking his head in there, just sniffing around, looking for shrimp, trying to uproot shrimp and trying to find his snail, trying to find his next meal. He doesn't realize, but he's happy, and he's wagging his little tail out of the water, and we find, that happy, what we call happy reds. That
red tail coming out the water.
And they
definitely
little flail, that little tail flapping and just wagging his little butt.
And to add on,
and then I start wagging my butt. And my heart,
right?
My heart starts beating, and I just look back.
You finished the beer you got on the boat, and
be quiet. Cast the line, cast it 10 feet past the fish, because when you're talking, you're out here and you're seeing those reds. The water is glass calm. It's quiet. The water's crystal clear. That's just that's a recipe for disaster for a fish to see this big human that's sitting on a boat coming up trying to fish him, So
absolutely, the old tail.
Like that, it's just a rush for me. The challenge is on. It's not easy, like, going to the inside of a channel or on the beach on the inside of a pass where we know 100 snook are going to stage up every day on an incoming tide and hit those beach pilchers. And we know those fish are there. You can go there and you can catch the same fish probably 3 times in a day, and there's those fish. That's not a challenge. So this is just a real challenge. It really, brings out the skill and the challenge trying to get a tailing red in the wintertime on a low tide. And with all of those things against you, it really hones you in and makes you a better angler for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And to add on to what you were talking about, the cold fronts, I know we actually have 2 sets of cold fronts coming in this next week.
Yep.
So
it was dropped. Somebody said the humidity was dropping this week. I noticed it a little bit, but more so I noticed that the smoke in the air today down here.
Yeah. The old Canadian wildfires are down here.
Yeah, I guess Canada's on fire, and somehow we're getting smoked out down here.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, they're showing we're going to get that front end Sunday afternoon, and it looks like it's going to keep us, I don't want to say cool, it's going to keep us in the 80s all through that week, and then another one's coming back in that next Sunday. And going to drop us a little bit.
That's like the seasoning getting dropped in the pot of the seafood broil, though, man.
Oh, yeah.
It is the pot, though, because as soon as that weather starts to change and just that little bit, they feel the surface, that 5-degree temperature change is going to change the surface of the water that they're in, and they just know that's time to start happening, and it triggers. Absolutely. It's going to trigger that instinctive, all right, we're going in full feed mode, which they've been in. The fish are, unfortunately, I've not had enough time on the water to go be a part of it yet, but it's coming. I'm not going to miss another full October of not fishing for reds. So, plus we're going to need to get some, we're going to have to get some viewers, some video action.
Yeah. Yep. Some monster reds, right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So what would you say? I mean, I know you said their primary food source, right? But if you had to pick 5 live baits to bring with you, what would they be?
5 live,
guaranteed. 5 different live baits. Anytime, you got to have some options, bro, because you can't always go get shrimp.
Dynamite.
I have everything there is.
Come on now. 5. What 5 baits would you use, and what order? Your top 5. That's not bad.
So, you're asking me this, what time of year are we fishing?
Anytime
of year. All right. Well, number 1, I'm going to have shrimp.
Okay.
Live shrimp. Number 2, okay. I would love to have greenbacks. Number 2 would be greenbacks. The third one would definitely be either past crab or blue crab.
Yep.
Fresh. So that would be 3. And if I didn't have to pick the other 2, I wouldn't have to. Those 3 would be
okay. So you're 3.
Just enough for me. I mean, I wouldn't want to bring any more excessive anything on the boat that's not needed.
Yeah. See, like, but I'm on the complete other side of that. Like ladyfish, and I'm good. Cut up ladyfish, and
are we talking?
I don't need nothing else.
We cut up ladyfish ain't live.
Redfish. Oh, I didn't mean like swimming live. I meant like.
Hold on a second.
Like,
now,
was alive.
You want it live, but are you going to use it live for the redfish, or are you going to cut it up?
How big a redfish are you going for, brother?
Well, so there though. That's where there's speculations though, because if I was to use ladyfish, I'm not going to need it live. I'm going to chunk it up and use it. So live, obviously, if knowing and putting those 2 together with it being live, we know that it's fresh. That's one thing with ladyfish. So I would agree having ladyfish, live because fresh is the best. Can't really freeze. Ladyfish doesn't work real good freezing it. Trying to use it for chunk bait, it gets mushy. So having fresh mullet would be, definitely a thing that even live mullet would be probably another one too. Fresh good one.
So for me, live finger mullet would be my.
So technically, if I had the 5, that would be the 5 full. But I would be content with, your greenbacks, live shrimp, and blue crab.
Yeah.
See, I got a little different list, and I got one on there that not a lot of people throw, because I learned about it actually within like the last few years, and it's kind of it's a trade secret, but I don't care. But as you say, you gotta stir the pot. But like
that's what we're here for.
D&D was known for selling those Gulf pink shrimp. And we had one captain that I used to work with religiously. He would always throw those on not the mustad screw locks, but the mustad push throughs, and he'd push it into the body of the shrimp, but rig it backwards and just pitch those big Gulf pink shrimp up underneath those mangroves. And his clients would always hook big reds just fishing those mangrove lines. So that became one of his things for his tournament secrets and all of that, was using those big Gulf pink shrimp. And he'd always end up with a decent sized red, especially during the winter months or during, beginning of spring and stuff like that. So that became.
So you guys have your cat out of the bag. BJ, your cat is ladyfish. Bassin, I would say your cat is big Gulf pink shrimp.
Oh yeah.
Throw those. Those things are like baby lobsters. They're so good.
They taste soda redfish.
So you let your cat out of the bag. My cat would be, and I can't believe we're doing this, guys.
We got to, bro.
Let me
got to.
All right, go ahead and say it.
I have to say, blue crab, man, is why the third. People are probably wondering right now, why would he want live blue crab? Like, that's crazy. Well, let me tell you, when you open up a blue crab and you break them down and you break that back shell off, cut the legs off, and open up that shell and just create that scent. We're going back to redfish. I mean, we're talking redfish, man. They love crustaceans. Blue crab is one of their favorites. How did they get that mermaid tail? They get the mermaid tails from eating the crabs. I'm going to take on a blue crab, and because of the scent is so strong, similar to shrimp, that's why those big shrimp work. The bigger bait, the more scent it's going to put off, the more scent it holds for it to put off. So those huge shrimp are that's just a big bait. That's a big
Oh,
big cut. Like, I mean, if you throw something, a big pile out there that's gonna rot and stink, a big pile is gonna smell a whole lot longer and a lot more and put off a lot more fumes than a small pile. So the bigger it's putting off more scent. But when you break those blue crabs down, man, it's just something that I had an old timer that taught me, and I thought he was crazy. But seeing the pictures of the reds that he catches versus me, using live bait side by side, it's like, and I started using it, and it works, man. So, it's just the way that you do it to kind of conserve it, because blue crabs are not very cheap. You break the back shell off of it, cut their legs off, and then you cut their bodies in fours. Throw a quarter of that, big blue crab, throw it on a jig head, and throw it underneath the mangroves and give it 5 minutes. If there's a red within the perimeters of 10 to 15 feet in that area, he's gonna find it in 5 minutes, and if he don't, there's not a redfish in around.
Oh yeah,
yeah, man, and what he is saying too, I just want to kind of key on this point. He is saying fresh blue crab. I mean, owning a bait shop, I sell frozen blue crab, but I tell my customers right away that is not the best choice, and the reason why is because once it's frozen, the shells get really soft, and you'll put a hook through it, and it'll hit the water, and it'll fall off the shell. So he is definitely talking about fresh blue crabs. Like in our area, you can go to like the fish houses and just tell them, hey, I want fresh blue crab,
shops.
and
right here,
bait shops too. Yeah.
We've got them. We've got the big ones with claws, and
not past crabs.
No.
Past crabs do work, but he's not talking about past crabs. He is talking about full blue crabs.
Yeah, when I was
a lot of bait shops actually starting to catch on to it. I'm seeing a lot of the other shops and talking to some of the other owners and stuff, and I'm seeing a lot of them starting to pick it up, and which some of them may be selling for their clients that eat the blue crabs. There's a lot of clients that just absolutely love blue crab for eating, but I think that it's becoming more of a thing, man, that people are using.
It is
using blue crabs because they work. If it works,
yeah.
Don't fix it, right?
When I used to work out by you a little bit, I used to work on Pine Island Road at a big bait store over there. But I was always preaching to keep blue crab year round, because if it wasn't tarpon season, the black drum and the redfish were moving. It was a bait that people asked for all the time, and we sold those frozen 2-packs of blue crab like hotcakes because we didn't keep live ones.
Yeah, people just love the fight of those big uglies, man.
Mm-hmm.
Big uglies.
Oh yeah. I'm getting posts being shown to me all week long now. Like Colby just caught his big ugly,
I've seen that.
And they're fishing up there at basically Charlotte Harbor, Peace River area, and they're pulling them out around Structure right now. They're starting to make their way back into South Cape. And we were talking about this with a few of my buddies. We have a buddy with mine with CCPD, and he gets calls all the time in South Cape, and some people out in like Old Burnt Store get calls about bass in cars during the wintertime. And what it really is all those drum coming up the canal chain just grunting away, and people don't realize that, and they catch them on ring cameras because all that concrete's just reverberating it. And we used to get people that would tell us about that, and I'd be like, cool, I know where the drum are now. Uglies, and go chase them that way. But that live blue crab, we used to, when we would run out, we'd tell everyone to go down to Barn Hills down there in Matlacha and be like, hey, listen, if you want big old blue crabs, they're going to look at you funny when you tell them you're going fishing with them. They're going to go, really? You're going to wait?
They're not cheap.
No, they're not.
They're
you got to fight them your own. You got to fight them hand to hand once you get them.
Yeah. Another alternative bait that I really like is mullet, man. Mullet heads. My fishing style is big baits. That's my favorite style. But mullet heads, ladyfish chunks. I never used to be like that. Somebody turned me on to the big dead baits, and ever since I've been hooked on it. I mean big live baits too, but big dead baits. A lot of people use mullet. I know Richard was saying something about finger mullet. A lot of people use finger mullet too because
I
they
love
get down
live finger
in the
mullet.
water column.
That was number 2. That was number 2. Big old Gulf Pinks live finger mullet, and then I'll take hand-picked shrimp. And what I'll do with those is I'll take the fantail off of them and about a 1/4 ounce jig head, and I'll just pitch them out that way and rig them up through the back so they can't flick too much, but they'll still crawl and drag it. And during that winter time, you'll either catch big snook on them that are just sitting on the bottom being lethargic, or reds, and I love it.
Yeah.
I had a customer come into the bait shop the other day that absolutely swore by pass crabs for snook. Something that I never used, but he said for snook, getting off the red subject, but he did mention pass crabs with big snook in the passes, like on the bridge.
See, I heard the same thing about that a lot after the storm.
Yeah.
After Ian came through, I got a few old guys that I know out there religiously that fish that. And I mean, literally, if you go over the bridge, they're fishing one spot on that bridge year round. As soon as you come over going from Matlacha towards Pine Island, they're right there in that right corner.
That old man fishes 4 days a week.
Oh, yeah. And he was telling me, I was down there not too long ago. He's like, when the storm came through, you would put a pass crab on a hook and float past the shadow line, and you were catching big snook.
Yep.
But I've never thrown a pass crab for him. Yep. I've always thrown shrimp or white bait.
Never done it. Never really thought about it, but it's struck an interest for me. So it's something.
It's like pinfish.
At wintertime, so this winter, winter it's gonna have to be a trial.
Yeah, it's like pinfish, man. You hear a lot of people using pinfish for redfish and black drum too, but I don't know. I've never been a fan of pinfish.
Yeah.
I'm real
big on pinfish, but I went out the other day and my dad caught took my dad fishing, and he caught a slot snook very first cast on a tailless pinfish live.
No way.
Yep.
Nice.
See, like talking about the snook on the beach, not to get off topic again, but during the summer, I'd love catching pinfish when you could be out on Sanibel Causeway. And I'd take a live pinfish that I just caught sabiki rig, literally cut it in half and pitch it out. And if there was a snook out there, like you were saying with the blue crab up underneath the mangrove, if there was a snook anywhere near there, it was on it.
Yeah, as predatorial as they are, which we that's going to be for another cast. But we were starting to talk the other day, BJ, about how that is how predatorial and the snook are. It's amazing that once those fish start getting bigger, they get a little less active and a lot more lazy, and they eat dead bait. I mean, that's just what it is. The big fish start to get big. They're not as active. They start to get a little lazy and old like us, and they don't want to they don't want to chase bait and have to work so hard for their food anymore. So they're more spending more time on the bottom, swimming around, looking for an easy opportunity and easy meal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, you're not lying. I promise you guys, if y'all are still watching our next podcast about snook, we are going to drop the #1 absolute nothing holds a candle to it bait for snook, and his name starts with a B, so y'all know what I'm talking about. But we're not going to say it in this podcast. Y'all got to jump on the next one to get that. But I promise you, if you can find them, it's the best bait that you will ever use. You know what I'm talking about, Mike? Starts with a B. What about you, Richard? You know what I'm talking about?
Honestly, I'm sure once you tell me, I'll figure it out. Yeah, but I'll be like, as of right now.
Is there an N before the B or no?
No.
Are we all just getting really close to the camera now?
Best.
Not catching fish. Then you're not
the best. Right, the best live bait.
Best live bait.
It's got a pointy little nose.
Bass.
Are we?
Let's just keep them interested. Just go to.
I guess we got to keep them,
guys. Look up.
We're not.
Yeah, y'all gonna have to watch the next one. So is there anything else that you guys think that we left out about redfish, man? I know I made a little list that I got off to the side. We got our combos, we got our line leader, all that stuff.
What's your favorite way to eat a redfish?
Oh man, that's a good one, dude. On the on the half
A
shell,
little
bro,
bit of sacrileges,
with some blackening seasoning on the grill on the half shell. Done.
For years and years and years, I told people that I just wasn't really crazy about redfish, but and in fairness, it's been many, many years since I've ever had it because, as you guys know, we had a 4-year spell where we couldn't even keep them.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Even before that, I was on a kind of a gig even before the closure of the season that I just wasn't keeping fish because, I was fishing so much and fishing so late that last thing I wanted to do was go home and clean fish and, about that. And so there was a good time there that I really just didn't keep fish or eat fish for a while. So it's been a long time, and the opportunity arose that I had another friend of mine that is a captain, and we caught one in opening season and took it to the restaurant, and he had it fried up. And buddy, that was some good redfish, man. So be on, and I've kept a few since then, but try not to keep too much just because it's one of my favorite fish, and I want to see those numbers, and I want to see my kids see those numbers of
Absolutely.
fish, future of 100 to 300 fish in a school, and if there's hundreds of people keeping their limit each day, we're not going to have the future fisheries that we even have. We've seen it even with us over the years. I was talking to multiple people about it today that things are just not the same as they were in the 80s and 90s here. Things have changed even in the last 5 years. I was talking to another fellow captain earlier, and he said the things that he's seen change in the last 5 years. He's been chartering for 7, and the changes he's seen in 5 years is just is a major turnaround. So just something for you guys to kind of keep in. There's nothing wrong with keeping fish and following the rules with FWC and law regulations, but those are in there for a reason. So if you're eating the fish, don't keep them.
Yep, 100%. 100%.
Oh yeah.
Since you hit on that, dude, I think that's a good thing to talk about. The population has it increased in the 4 years since the season's been closed. Like as being a captain and seeing it every day.
Personally, I believe it definitely helped. But then on the back end, you see when the opening, you see it slowly deplenish too. You see it on both ends. So I seen it, over the years with the closure. I mean, there for a while before the closure when we had the real bad fish kill. The reason why they closed the fisheries, the real bad fish kill, for the first couple of years after that, you weren't seeing big numbers of redfish. I mean, you weren't seeing as many schools of redfish. You weren't seeing the numbers of the amount of fish in the schools as you are now. And now that we're opened back up, but it's a 1 fish per person per day regulation, so it's pretty fair. But I believe definitely in the 4 years that it was closed, I believe it helped our fisheries a lot, and I believe in it. There's a lot of people that that kind of ruffles some feathers in a lot of people's agenda with fishing. That a lot of people feel like that fishing is not just a sport. I do it to get fish, but what I like to say to those people is, well, how much did you pay for your boat? How much did it cost you to go out on the boat? How much gas did you spend? How much was your gear, your bait for the day? And then when they tell me they spent $120 to go fishing, and they're mad that they couldn't keep 4 trout and a redfish and a snook all in one, I tell them at the end of the day, if you weighed up that meat, going to the meat market to get an offshore fish that's commercially, grouper is just, there's an amazing amount of grouper and other fish to eat that are good.
Absolutely.
Fish and all of that are still good fish. So for your money, if it's all about that, then you're not spending your money very well anyways. It is about the sport and the future fisheries. It's a sport, and the sport will no longer be there if we, if we kept everything. So.
Yeah, man. And the thing is too, that me and Richard on another podcast talked about it a little bit, about like the population increase causing problems with that. And we had talked about it, like, you look at these pictures back in the day, 30, 40, 50 years ago, where people had truckfuls of fish, right? And everybody says, oh, that's the reason why. But the difference is there was 20 people, with a boat full of fish. Now there's, 20,000 people with one fish. You know what I mean? The population takes a huge hit, as like what you're talking about keeping fish. You say it's one fish per person per day, but we got to think on a Saturday in Pine Island Sound, right? How many fish are caught on that one fish a day? You know what I mean?
Yep, absolutely.
It's crazy. The numbers are
that way, like me, like, just on another cast that we talked about with the trout cast, like you just saying that I am the man with trout, with being the charter guide, I really figured out trout, spent a lot of time figuring out trout, for the sake of my clients, to really keep on that fishery and keep them busy. And it's really for the kids too, it's fun fishing. It's very high pace, one after another. It creates an addictive fisherman and an addictive with that kind of fishing. So I turn to that. I love to turn around. I've had you can even go online with my charter business and look it up and read reviews where I've had even an instance where the wife told me before we went out, this was going to be her last trip with her husband fishing, because she doesn't enjoy fishing. She just enjoys the boating part. She usually just reads a book, and that this was actually going to be her last fishing adventure with her husband. And, I didn't agree with that. So I took her trout fishing and
changed it up.
Made her change her mind about that. And at the end of the day, she whispered in my ear that she appreciated what I did, and the day that she had, because she had an absolute blast catching fish one after another and watching those fish jump out of the water, and just she had a blast. And she said, I actually reconsidered my statement beginning of the day today, and I think we're going to fish with you every year when we come down here. So, just hearing those kind
so awesome.
Creating fit, kids, where, kids have really, you hear the stories, and you read the reviews, and people seeking, help for their children, and, their children like fishing, but they're frustrated because they're not catching anything. And that's what this is all about. If we can help somebody, and improve, or give them any kind of tips and places to go, I mean, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. And I think that's a really good point, man, because it's definitely, redfish is a step up from a lot of those easier fish to catch, but those easier fish to catch definitely put you in the the want to make that step up, because it's like, I want to try something a little bit more challenging, and redfish is definitely up there with the challenging. They're not the easiest fish to catch by far.
Oh yeah.
They're my favorite fish to target, because touching on the subjects, like I told you, with the winter time and the thrill of that like it's almost as like a drug, like being out there, standing on a platform, pulling up to a fish that doesn't see you, and it almost out the kid in you. You know how the peekaboo, like when you're playing hide and go seek spot, and you're like, you see somebody's feet walk by you, and you know that they don't see you, they don't hear you, and you're just that rush of like, yes, I'm hiding. Yes, I'm hiding in there, not hiding in us. It's like, it's that drug of the challenge of that fish not seeing us and not hearing us, and then us throwing an artificial lure that either we have made or bought from a company, and manipulating that fish to be able to bite. It's a sport. It's just like I said, it's exhilarating, and that, like you said, with redfish, they're not that easy fish. I've mastered a lot of different fish, snook, trout. I'm really good at catching those. I can catch redfish. I'm pretty good at it, but I could be a whole lot better. And I think that's going to be one fish, besides many others, that I'm going to have to spend a lot more time to really master. So you're definitely right with that. Fish are, they're not the easiest. To some people they are, but that's because they've spent their time mastering it, and I haven't quite put my time in for them yet. And that's probably where I'll be headed.
And like
coming soon.
Like you were saying with the trout, fish like that are a great way for people to get into the sport again, or get into it in general. Mm-hmm. Because like we talking about how the kids were. That's why I kind of like, for my own channel and for my own videos, I have my little motto that they'll get out there and hook into your next memory. Because we get to those moments where, like you're saying, you're getting giddy as a kid, seeing that redfish that doesn't see you, it's tailing, you're getting ready to put that lure right ahead of it. It's those moments that we remember. And when I get people that come in and, for my years of working in the bait store and all of that, I get people that come in like, listen, like my kid, like I just want him to get into fishing. And that's where the freshwater side of things for me came in, because it's where I started with my dad. I was fishing spillways with live shiners going for bass. And now that we have peacocks here, that's kind of like my to get kids on. It's like, this is what you're going to dump all of your spare time into now, is chasing peacocks and largemouth. And, they're going to come in and like, I mean, I can't tell, like there was 2 Sundays ago, a kid came in with 2 or 3 Sundays ago, a kid came in with literally a handful of change that he had saved up to buy a dozen shiners.
It's so awesome,
and, man. It's that kind of stuff that, if you can get someone hooked into catching an easier to target fish, they're going to go, well, I can do this. Now I'm going to try this. And they're going to try to master redfish, or they're going to try to master understanding snook or tarpon, or, try to master stuff like the exotics, like snakeheads and clown knives and red tails. And they're going to chase.
Absolutely.
So there's just something special about fishing. And I was watching another cast earlier with a really unique a guy that is 77 now, and he's spent his whole life growing up down in the Keys, and he's a fly fisherman, and he's even said, that he's actually pulled more than he has walked in his life. So he has boat pulling for tarpon and pulling for fish in the Keys more than he has walked. He has more miles pulling a boat than he has walking. Now that's passion.
Yes.
Like he was speaking is like he said, man, and you can relate to it with fishing. When you have a passion for fishing, there's a magic moment when you get on a vessel or when you get on a skiff. It doesn't matter if there's 2 or 3 or 4 people on that skiff. It's a magic moment when you step on that floating skiff and you push away from the dock, and your adventures are about to start, because you just never know what's going to happen. And you're sharing that moment, those moments and those hours that day on that boat with that person. It's like a type of magic, man. And it's just something that to be able to share those passion with each other. You get on the boats, you get on a skiff, and they say, there's more said on a skiff than in a church with a confession stand. You're on a boat with somebody, you're sharing a moment that obviously you've been drawn together on a boat, you've been drawn together because of your passion that you have in interest, and it's not even just with boats either, but bait shops. I mean, if somebody's coming into a bait shop, they've struck an interest to go fishing, whether they're going fishing or they've never fished before. Man, I've had people that are, in their 50s and 60s, and they've said they've never used a rod or reel, never fished a time in their life. And they get on the boat with me for the very first time ever fishing. And it's like, man, you almost want to sit back and you're like, do I trust you to get on my boat?
Yeah.
I want to know if they're real. Like, I have a funny saying that I tell my customers, and most people find it pretty funny, but I tell them, like, if you don't fish or if you don't like fishing, if I've met you and you say you don't like fishing, I don't trust you. I don't trust you. I don't know how people operate and not find fishing. And it's okay to not be your passion. If you're not passionate about it, if it's not what if you don't bleed, eat, and sleep fishing, that's fine. But if you don't enjoy it and you don't find it therapeutic or find it relaxing or find it even somewhat interesting, that's rather strange to somebody like me. So
something's wrong.
yeah. Yep.
They got dropped on their head as a baby.
Yeah, I don't trust people that don't like fishing. So.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Definitely, man. You got either of you guys got anything else about Reds?
I love.
I think so.
Yeah,
no, I know, man.
I want to fish the Bass Pro Shop tank all the time.
You ain't lying. You ain't lying. You know what we haven't talked about? In the glades, man. That too. Our feelings of Reds. In the glades, dude.
Guys, I love Reds.
Oh yeah, you did.
I mean, there's the glades. There's Flamingo.
Yeah, dude. Like I mean, like 41, like on the side of the road, bro. People neglect to, realize that there's redfish in freshwater ponds. You know what I mean? There's a bunch of them in Punta Gorda, the salt flats. I mean, it's a lot of saltwater ponds on golf courses and stuff, or brackish.
I will say.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I will say, to add on to that, there is a downtown, especially like in Naples and Golden Gate, there's a Walmart down there with a literal saltwater creek running through the middle of the parking lot. And I have seen people catch redfish and snook out of the Walmart parking lot many a time.
That's so awesome, man. That's so awesome. We live in Jurassic Park, bro.
Off subject of redfish, but I seen a video down in Miami the other day. It was in a neighborhood with a storm gutter. I guess they had a bad flood or something up there, and there was literally fish flopping all around in the curb on the side of the curb on the road where the storm drain came up. And it was a real post where people were saying that.
Yeah.
Like, there was somebody in the background saying, well, we're from Iowa. We've never seen anything like this. The fish are coming out of the storm.
That's funny.
Miami, and then people were posting on there constantly like, oh yeah, we definitely fished the storm drains. Ask Monster Mike. Monster Mike is he's a YouTuber, and he's done some real funny videos about catching fish in storm drains. And I find it funny, like that it's crazy that you can catch fish in a storm drain. And I've done it myself, man, right there off of Burnt Store. One of the north spillways there. There's a storm drain in between the roads right before the bridge there, and just to test the waters, I dropped a minnow down there one time and ended up catching an Oscar.
You got smoked.
Yeah,
that
Oscar. But then I had an issue. I couldn't get the Oscar through the grades of the
storm drain.
It was too big, so let him go.
Yeah, you got to remember that water came from somewhere and it has to go somewhere else. So somewhere they came up. I know me and you have actually by the dealership little ponds over there in North Fort Myers. We've I didn't say what dealership, but the little canal ponds. We've caught peacocks in the storm drains there, messing around. Good times. Good times, man. So we got tides, we got current, we got structure, we got where to find them. We pointed out some bomb spots that a lot of people are going to be pissed off about. We did primary food source, the water depth, all the gear. Anything else I got?
I think it
You
pretty
think
much.
of?
And we gotta leave some information for another podcast now.
No, yeah,
I know, dude, we're not
about
gonna have
before
nothing to.
snap stuff coming up here soon. You know,
once.
Yeah, right.
And
I know.
free.
I know that I'm dying to do the snook one, man. I can't wait till we can talk about some big snook and some tarpon, man. I got a good story about Mike. I'll give y'all a little bit of it. Mike caught his first tarpon. We were in the Keys, and I had just painted a lure, and he he caught his tarpon, and this tarpon was live, like green. He was so excited, man. Mike got him in like that, you know. He didn't give the fish no time to fight, and we were wearing flip flops, you know, Florida boys. I mean, we don't come out of our flip flops unless we're no shoes. And
you know.
Croc, same thing. We were walking down the bank, man, and Mike had this tarpon. He was about 40 pounds, and he pulled him up onto the bank, and lure, double, treble hooks, tarpon's hooked in the mouth, and the other hook just so happened to go into the top of Mike's foot, and like I said, tarpon was green. And we'll finish the rest of that story.
Hurry! Get it out now!
Yeah, I'm yelling at him. Don't move!
Oh, don't move! I'm not. Give me pliers. Ow.
Yeah, man. We got some good stories about that night. Me and Mike, honestly, Mike not so much because of another reason, but Mike supplied me with something that helped me catch at least a minimum of like 40 tarpon in like 2 hours, man. It was an insane night, but that's another story for another podcast, man. Y'all got to stay tuned for the tarpon podcast. But I know Rich has got Big Man Bassin's got a YouTube channel, and he's got an Instagram that's got some following. And how do people find you on Instagram and YouTube, man?
Carefully. But
right?
No, I mean, literally on YouTube, you just type in the Big Man Bassing. I should pop up. I'm really the only one on there with that name. That's why I kind of chose it. There was a lot of Big Man Bassing, but I put the in front of it, and I was original.
Hell yeah.
And then Instagram, if you guys are watching, it's the same way it's spelled right here. If you guys look me up on Instagram, be sure to do it this way. Go to Native Bait and Tackle's website or Instagram page. And when you go to their followers or following, you can go ahead and click that, type in the Big Man Bassing, and you can find me that way. But before you do that, make sure you follow Native Bait and Tackle. And get on over to Hooked Up Bait Pro too and give them a follow too. They'll be in that same category you're looking up for me for. Make sure we're getting the follow and spread evenly.
Definitely, man. And if y'all don't know, man, Mike does charters. He owns a bait store. He owns a construction company. This guy does it all, man. But one thing, he loves fishing, man. So how do they get a hold of you? What do they need to do? Where do they find your bait shop? Where do they find your Instagram? All that stuff.
So we are on all major social medias. We do not do TikTok, but we are on Facebook, and we are on Instagram as well. We look up Hooked Up. It's HOOK''D Bait Company, and also all of the other companies are all hooked up. So you got Hooked Up Fishing Charters and Pine Island, and then Hooked Up Home Solutions is for the construction. So we're just doing a lot of hooking up. We're hooking everybody up. From the hurricane, we decided that we would do our part. As the fishing got a little bit slow, we would do our part on helping rebuild the island so that we can get people back into their homes and get back to normal life here. And we can help also get these Airbnbs and vacation homes and stuff back together so that our local charter guides and everything can get back to feeding their families, because it's been really affected by that. If there's no place for vacationers to sleep, then there's no business for the charter captains. There's no business for the local bait shops. It's just a trickling effect, so we're doing our part and trying to rebuild. And we recently opened up now the bait shop. We're also a unique bait shop. We have art gallery with nautical art. We have home decor, jewelry, clothing. We're actually getting into our own clothing line, which will be hooked up fishing apparel. And we also carry the custom native rods. So those are unique rods. We're a dealer with them. So we have quite a few custom rods, and we're going to be adding to the collection of those, and hopefully have some unique. Well, I know that we do have unique rods that nobody else in Florida has, or United States. So you can come check us out or them over on Palm Beach Boulevard where they're at in Fort Myers. He got them obviously at his bait shop too, but we're here in Matlacha, Florida, right on Pine Island. It's 4630 Northwest Pine Island Road. We're in a big 2-story teal building. We're working on getting the name and everything still attached to it, but we're not hard to miss. We're right across from Leoma Lovegroves, which is a really well-known artist that's out here. So
yeah.
Yeah,
man, I really want to touch on that for a second too, man. It's a year later. The anniversary just came up for the hurricane, man, and there's still for those of you that don't know, there's still cars sitting in the water. There's still houses that are halfway knocked down that are still sitting in the water till this day. That there's cars underneath of. A year later, there is a ton of captains that primary source of income or only source of income for the most part was Pine Island, Matlacha, that area, and Sanibel and all of our areas. I mean, I've said before, I on the river, I lived close to 20 miles up the river, and I had 6 foot of water in my house, 20 miles away from where Mike is or where Mike's shop is. So the hurricane was no joke, man, and it put a lot of families out of commission, man. If it's hard to explain to somebody that don't know, but imagine, being one day and having your business, having your cars, having your trucks, your house, your kids' trampoline in the yard, your boat, your whole life sitting on this island. And then the next thing you know, that quite literally everything you own got washed away and is gone and out of your possession, and a lot of people forget, it's not just, your car, it's your house, your drawer with your socks and your underwear in it, that it's gone. These people went from, living a life, a normal functioning life down to nothing. So when you guys are looking up, places to go fishing and charter and stuff like that, as we've showed in this podcast, the fish are here, man. The fish are here. Just because the boats and everything else got blown away, the houses and everything else, it didn't change the fishing. So I know that it's hard to find places to stay and stuff like that. But if you drive a little bit further inland or, towards Fort Myers and stuff, all those hotels, those Airbnbs are still good as long as you're not right on the water and in the river and things like that. Like Mike said, they're doing their part to rebuild, but there's not enough help here to rebuild it like that. It's taking some time, and it's probably going to be like that for another 10 years, man. So if you're out there and you're looking to go on a charter or something like that, keep these guys in mind, because like Mike was fortunate enough to have a construction background that he had something to fall back on, but a lot of these captains didn't, man. And it's all they know, if Mike wouldn't have, jumped head first into it, he wouldn't have nothing today. His house was flooded, everything was gone. So I know it's kind of a touchy subject for all of us that went in through it, but keep us in mind, man. It's a year later, but we still have not got back to where we were, with tourism and everything, man. The hurricane was rough, man. It really was. I know Mike can tell you a little bit about his experience on the island and seeing what happened to the island, but I'll let him tell you too. But in my experience, man, it's the only reason I left my house is because I had a swamp buggy. I had a swamp buggy that had 6-foot tires on it. The deck of the buggy set 10 foot off the water or off the floor, and I had water coming over the deck of the buggy because the waves in the middle of the street were that high. And like I said, I'm nowhere near, like the island, like Mike's shop is and Mike is. The only thing I had downfall for me is the Franklin locks. It's a couple streets from my house, so all that water hit the locks and then had nowhere to go, so it came right up my street, and I lived in like a cul-de-sac, like basically below sea level. So it got hit hard. But I know, like Mike, me and Mike have a mutual friend that's a captain that lived in a trailer during the time, and he decided to stay during the hurricane. And literally in the middle of it, water coming through the floor and everything else, went to run and go get in the truck, and went to take off in the truck, and the truck flooded out because of the water. And his boat's on the back of the trailer, and this crazy cracker rode the storm out in the boat. So but I know Mike can tell you a little bit about the devastation. I think it's something important that we talk about.
Yeah, I mean, we could even do a whole podcast on that too.
Yeah, we can. We will.
It has had a major effect, guys. A lot of, like you said, a lot of the captains that have been out here on islands and small islands like this, which I say small. Pine Island is actually, in fact, the largest island in the state of Florida. But that still doesn't mean that it's anything in comparison to the cities that are within the state of Florida. So our population, is still a lot smaller than the surrounding cities, but a lot of these people out here, I mean, we're islanders. We were affected. We were basically ground zero. I mean, the face of the storm hit our barrier islands first. But the barrier islands are so small, and they have such small population on those islands and such small structure to the size of the storm that this was. The barrier islands didn't slow the storm down any. So we were basically still, even with the storm crossing the barrier islands and it hitting the face of Pine Island, ground zero, we were just devastated out here. Matlacha being the historical background of Matlacha. If you know anything about it, if you don't, then this is what we're here to basically let you know. Like, this was a historical island. It was a historical fishing village, is what they call it. It's a small island between Pine Island and Cape Coral, and everything is prehistoric. Basically, there was no codes back when they built a lot of these unique motels, and a lot of the restaurants and everything that are waterfront on the strip of Matlacha that are directly on the water were not built to hurricane codes. These were built, you're talking over 100 or around 100 years ago, when there was absolutely no codes or anything that they had to implement or follow with building codes. That didn't start until the 80s and 90s, where they started making it to where you had to build things to code. But so everything was just destroyed. I mean, the amount of water that we had come through the pass here, like BJ said, there's still homes that are half sunk in and half fallen in. And it's not even nearly funny at all. But the fishing, the angler in me is wondering, like, man, there's got to be fish underneath that house and swimming in that house. Because, I mean, houses are literally slid, like a whole half of a house is slid off into 6 and 7 feet of water, and you can't see anything but the shingles on the top. So that whole house is in the water. And day by day, every day that I pass, and every week and every month that goes by, and you pass by those houses that are still there, they're slowly falling more and more into the water as the time goes by. And that was somebody's home. That particular home that is at the foot of the bridge there was a business owner of Matlacha itself. But And some of those people didn't evacuate. A lot of those people that, because one thing in Florida with hurricanes is that we always are told about surge. And, as you guys know, being Floridians, that we were always told by the media and the news that the storm surge 20 feet every time. They tell us 20 feet, 20 feet, 20 feet. You're going to get 15 feet of surge. You can get 12 feet of surge. You can get all of these drastic numbers. And we're like, we get rain flooding. The only flooding we've ever gotten in the past, and I've been here 35 years. I've been through every hurricane. This is actually the first hurricane that I was not present in this state for. Actually in Michigan, king salmon fishing for the first time. And I was not here to witness the storm to the naked eye, So, our island, living here on Pine Island, coming back to it, I came back the day after the hurricane. I rushed back home, and we couldn't even get back onto the island. The roads were washed out. The bridges were washed out. We had to get by boat to Pine Island. Just seeing the devastation and everything with that nature can cause and the aftermath of what it affected with people and businesses and, just the people, period. I mean, Florida, we are already a tourism-driven state where us as locals that live here year-round, our jobs depend on people tourism. They depend on people that come down here, what we call the snowbirds, that come down here for 6 months out of the year. If we didn't have that, we would have nothing. We don't have factories. We don't have distribution centers. We don't have anything like that. So we're a tourism-driven state that was majorly affected by that. So being a charter captain, it was devastating because people have lost their homes. People lost their businesses. People lost everything that they have. Being a business owner, if you're a small business owner, everything that you own is in your business. So when that's taken from you, you lose everything. And in the flash of an eye, like honestly, in 14 hours, which is way uncommon for a hurricane, for 14 to 20 hours that this storm just sat and like a blender chewed things up. Typically hurricanes are pretty quick. It's like maybe a 6-hour ordeal total for a hurricane to come and be gone. In 6 hours it does what it does and moves along and keeps going. Well, this one was unique, and it stayed and just chewed things up one way and then threw things up the other way on the backside of it. So everybody was there was a lot of people that were affected, like you said, charter captains. You got to think of the commercial fishermen too. A lot of people don't think about that. And people come on vacation. They come down here on vacation and they sit at a restaurant and they want their lobster. They want their snow crabs. They want their shrimp. They want that fresh fish. And for that to be fresh, that had to have been caught by somebody. These people risk their lives to go on the boats and go out in the ocean and, without communication to the world and with, hooks and dangerous situations, get people food, and those people were destroyed. I mean, there was nothing, the boats were destroyed, boats were missing, things were just damaged, and it really uprooted a lot of people. But the good thing is that Floridians as a whole, if you're full grown Floridian, we're the same thing as just Islanders, but Islanders are still a little different. We all know as Floridians, we're all subject to hurricanes, and we're basically like a big island. So we are very resilient. So we're bouncing back, but we do need help. And I don't think that the media, as I was just thinking earlier, as much as we've helped the community involved with a bunch of big nonprofit organizations and everything that we were involved with shortly after the hurricane, from the day after the hurricane on, the media tends to forget about those that are affected. Life goes on for everybody else. Just like right now, me thinking about knowing what we went through as the hurricane, and being a victim of destruction like that, you almost feel lost and forgotten about because everybody else's life has gone on and yours has
moved on.
You know?
Oh, absolutely.
When I was a charter captain, I was full time. My phone wasn't ringing. My phone stopped ringing. All of my charters that were booked were now canceled because the people couldn't come. Planes, were not coming into the airports because they couldn't say. And there was no homes for these people to stay in. A lot of things were affected, and some people that have never been through that don't think about the trickle effect of how that affects everybody down the line. So my phone stopped ringing, and the bills don't pay themselves, and you can't, food's not free. So that being said, you have to be very resilient and change and adapt to the situations.
Absolutely.
So, definitely.
So we moved to construction, and we're able, fortunately, like you said, I have a construction background, and we're able to rebuild and help people get back. The people that are financially and were financially stable enough to be able to afford repairs, and then slowly as insurance and everything like that affects, comes in, we're able to help those people and survive. So, I love it as a bait shop owner. I don't know if you guys, both of you guys being in the shop, if you guys get it over there, but I'm sure you do. But being on the island's a little different. People travel here a little bit more than somewhere in Fort Myers, but they do. But islands are a little bit more tourism driven. We have people come in. I had a guy come in yesterday, and he said, he was from Ohio, and he heard what's going on. He kind of knew about us before the storm, but have never been here before the storm to know what it was like before the hurricane, before the destruction. But he decided to take his family on vacation, and you know what? He told me he decided that he was going to come to a place like this that was affected to spend his money in an area that he knows will make a difference and help people of local, and that's what we need more of. We need more people to come to the island and come to the surrounding, even Fort Myers, like support. We need more support. We need the tourism. We really need it. And the media needs to do its part on letting the rest of the world know that we are open and that we're building back and that we're not knocked down and we're not, it's not a ghost town here. We're rebuilding. We still have lives to continue on, and we have businesses to provide services for those people. So, we still want them to come out. And like you said, the fisheries have not changed. I mean, there was a week and a half after the storm. I think a week and a half, the first 10 days I spent, as being having U.S. Coast Guard credentials, it is kind of our duty to provide our service to transportation in that situation when the roads were broke. We were, it was kind of our responsibility to provide the public and help the public and even officials. We help the officials, even transporting them, because there's a lot of officials that aren't set up for that situation. They don't have boats readily available, or airboats or hovercrafts or anything to get to the land that is separated from the mainland. So we provided that service for the first 10 days, not getting paid, using our money to transport people and help the elderly people get back to mainland so that they can see, get medical attention and all of that. So it was a major deal. And then as time goes on, you run out of money and you're not making money. Eventually you have to, find a resource to start making money again. And
definitely,
fortunately for that situation, we were able to do construction and carry on and, rebuild. So
absolutely.
So if you guys do see this, come to Lee County, support in any part, any part that you can. If you're on vacation, you see this, you have an interest, you wanted to catch redfish, snook, come in, Google inshore fishing captains, offshore, whatever it is that you can support, restaurants or anything. Tell your friends, share this podcast and do your part on trying to help us rebuild.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, man. Yeah, I think on that note, man, I think we killed it. I think we did a good job. We need to do another podcast on the storm, man, and really speak on things like what the media didn't cover, about like the deaths and stuff like that, because I think those people deserve their moment too, even if it's on our little bitty podcast.
Yeah, no, even if we talk to business owners and how they're affected, man, we had an issue recently with Matlacha, and not to extend too much further, but I'm just going to touch on the subject and then I'm going to be out because it is getting late. But so Matlacha, the media, so we had one business owner on Matlacha that decided to close for 2 months because it was getting so slow that for him to stay open, it was costing him more than it would just to close his business down. So he decided to close his business, and the word got around, and the media took that and turned it as all the businesses in Matlacha are not open yet, that there are no businesses in Matlacha open, that there's nothing out here. So when that is getting twisted and turned, that Matlacha has nothing to offer to the public, then guess what? Nobody's going to come out here. But that's not true. Pine Island and Matlacha are rebuilding. There are still some businesses that are still suffering and trying and daily working to get open, but there are plenty of businesses open. There are art galleries open. There are bait shops that are back open. A lot of the restaurants are back open, and every week or in the next future following couple weeks, we have other businesses that are going to be opening. So there is also Airbnbs available, vacation homes that are available, local motels that are back open up. So if you do your research, just spend a little bit of time. Don't call one or two people and give up. Do your research, call all of them. There's motels, hotels, Airbnbs, Vibro. You can go on to Google and just search vacation homes with Matlacha, Florida, and call quite a few people. Don't give up and get out here and support, because the people love to see. We love to see people come in, and the more people that come, we love to, as Bassin says, create those memories and take them out there and get more memories with catching fish with your kids.
Definitely, man. All right, man. Well, I think we killed it. Like they said, Big Man Bassin on Instagram and YouTube. Hooked Up Bait Co. on YouTube, Instagram, all that good stuff. Hooked Up Charters on Google. And me, Native Rods, Native Bait and Tackle, 13016 Palm Beach Boulevard. Stop by the shop, man. Richard's always in there on Sundays. Fort Myers, Florida. Yep. Richard's in there on Sundays. He's got you with any of the bass stuff. He's well versed in any kind of fishing, but freshwater is his thing. If you guys are in the Matlacha area, man. Yeah, not fat guy snooking. Right? Nah, but yeah, man, I think we killed it. So I'll see y'all boys on the next cast.
All right, guys. Take care.